Well, biofuel advocates defend year-round E15 in court. Groups voiced their argument just yesterday after oil refineries sued EPA over a Trump-era rule that paved the way for the fuel's year-round sale. Well, President and CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association, Jeff Cooper, now joins us with the latest insight. Jeff, as always, thanks for your time here this morning. If you would bring us up to speed, of course, on this case and a couple of highlights from yesterday's hearing.
Sure, and thanks for having me this morning, Janet. I'm sure your viewers will probably remember that back in 2019, President Trump directed the Environmental Protection Agency to take steps to finally allow E15 to be sold all year long. And you may remember that prior to that, most retailers were prohibited from selling E15 in the summertime due to some 30-year-old antiquated EPA regulations that were never updated. So EPA finally adopted those regulations in May of 2019, finally allowing retail gas stations to sell E15 all year long. And, of course, the oil industry didn't like that. So they sued EPA, and it took almost 2 years before it got to court. But yesterday, the D.C. Circuit Court heard arguments from both sides on this case. So on the one side, you had the oil industry arguing that EPA's rule should be overturned, and they say we should go back to this ridiculous summertime ban on E15. And then on the other side, you had EPA arguing that the rule should stand. And RFA is an intervener in the lawsuit. We intervened on EPA's behalf. So our attorneys were also allowed to argue in support of EPA's rule. And we, of course, asked the court to affirm the EPA rule and put this issue behind us. So now we wait on the court for a decision. Bottom line is we've had EPA in the marketplace for about a decade. We're headed into our third summer of summertime E15 sales. There have been billions of miles traveled on this fuel, no issues whatsoever. We have close to 2,500 stations selling E15. It's a lower cost fuel. It's a cleaner fuel. So we hope the court sees through the oil industry's hollow arguments and we can put this issue to bed and move on.
Jeff, now, of course, you mentioned we now wait for the judge's decision, but where do we go from here? Do you think we can expect to see any kind of insight as we approach the summer driving season? And if there is a change, would it be immediate?
Well, we're not really expecting a decision out of the court until late summer, and in fact, it could be early fall before we hear a decision. And so we know the industry, the retailers and our industry are moving ahead. It's business as usual. We know that consumers are demanding and wanting increased access to E15 and other higher blends of ethanol. So we're going to do what we can to help expand the access to those fuels and continue building out the infrastructure to get more E15 out there. So we're not looking backward. We're looking forward in this industry. And like I said, we hope to get a good decision out of the court later this year and hopefully remove this roadblock for good.
All right. Well, Jeff, thanks for your insight this morning. President and CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association, Jeff Cooper, on the phone with us today out of St. Louis. You can go online to ethanolrfa.org for additional information.